that really suits your environment. There's the segregation of duties and so forth, so you have to kind of take a hard look at that.
Yeah, so at some of the implementing schools, all they have to do is go into that higher level role and remove the other role from it. So it's no longer nested and no longer has all those kind of super permissions.
But just be careful not to undo the nesting that is required for your job. Just like I have said to you before, probably it's a good thing to have a CAM manager reporting to the asset manager. So another pointer is that create new roles to fit your institutions. For some reason, if you want to give that tax identity user role permission, I'm asking permission to certain roles, just not limited to, was that a 49? You could isolate the permission and create that role and then nest that into another role. Just remember, you can assign the role to per person, but you can assign to the role. Groups, I think Tony talked about that quite a bit, but you can set up groups to manage users. That can be easier than managing individual user.
Yeah, I think it also just helps separate the different types of objects. So instead of adding a bunch of users to a role, you add them to the group, and then you add the group to the roles. It just kind of helps keep it clearer and makes maintenance much simpler. So I highly recommend thinking, if you're looking into specifically with KFS, maybe even more than other systems, groups are really valuable.
And also, you have to understand the power of KFS user and namespace. As I demonstrated earlier with the example of the financial processing namespace, you can set this up in different ways. One of the questions I received one time was how can I block AR accounts receivable biller access? Because the assumption is that it's going to look at your chart org, primary chart and org, and so long as there is a biller organization, you can do billing. So I said, well, why don't you just set up a KFS AR namespace? The organization, chart and org, that doesn't have a biller, then you can access like a cash control. Another consideration might be, this is more of a Tony's department, but do we want to implement sign-on, single sign-on?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty much a given. Most, unless you're a very small school and don't already have a single sign-on solution, almost everyone we've worked with so far has integrated with their single sign-on solution. So far, the most popular has been CAS. And for those of you who don't know, CAS is an open source solution for single sign-on that's really widely used. And in fact, it comes as part of KFS kind of out of the box. So whenever you've seen KFS demos, you've probably seen some of those CAS interfaces for doing the initial logon. And doing that customization is actually very simple. If you've already got a CAS implementation, getting it set up with KFS is relatively trivial. So that's definitely a nice feature to have. And we'll talk a little more about this one as we get into the next, some of the technical section. But there's another issue related to portal, and this is another modification we as an RSMAR are looking at doing soon going forward. The portal that comes with KFS specifically really was never meant to go into production because any user who logs on sees every option, even if they really don't have access to it. So you can go in and do some things that it just doesn't look quite right if you're a user and you click on a button and then it tells you that, oh, you're not allowed to do it. It just shouldn't show you that link to begin with. So we're hoping to enhance the portal to understand KIM and be able to take advantage of the KIM permissions to only show each user what they should be able to do. We're not looking to do a uPortal type solution. Just enhance it a little bit because a lot of schools don't have their own portal. So integrating with your own portal just for some isn't possible. If you already do have a portal, then we certainly recommend taking advantage of that and doing some customization to put the KFS or KIM menus into your portal system.
And so the principal IDs out of the box, it's it actually stores the sequence number from the database. But as we assisted some schools implementing KFS, some of them have made a decision to replace that with institutional ID. So that's just something, I think there is no good, wrong or right way. That's something to consider. Does it make it easier for you to tie back to your directory service by using institutional ID, or just keep the sequential number?
Yeah, I think a lot of the value there isn't so much for end users. It's really for DBAs, or people working directly with the data. End users won't ever see the difference. The principle.
Welcome to GoToWebinar, Web Events Made Easy.
So really, by using it for the principal ID, you're really just duplicating it in the data. It would show up in two spots to a DBA. So that it's really just a decision of more for DBAs and when you think about your data warehousing.
Right. You get, yes, like Tony said, there is already employee ID field in KIM, and also you can set up your external ID if you want to do more IDs. Now, KIM cache, how often do you change KIM data? KIM has a KIM cache along with the parameter cache. So when you are doing implementation and changing your parameters and KIM definitions, often you have to clear cache. Otherwise, you don't have the latest information available to test your functionalities. So going into production, you probably want to make a decision how often do you want to expire those caches.
Yeah, and that's a setting, that's part of the build process. There's also a batch job specifically designed to clear the cache whenever you want it to. That was removed from the production version of 3.0, so you actually can't use that, although the code is still there. So during our implementations, we've exposed that again during implementation and testing, just so you can do that whenever you want. There's no reason not to have it there. It really, doesn't do any harm. I think it was really just removed so that for performance reasons, so people aren't clicking on that and cleaning out the cache inappropriately, because that cache is extremely valuable for performance. And if it has to continually rebuild that, then it'll slow things down.
So the final point is the data conversion of principles. Let's say you decide that you're going to use your KIM as a central place to store all the IDs. Then how much data do you have to convert? You have to definitely think about that, because KFS accesses the principal ID for many different purposes. For instance, if you are doing just first name voucher, and if you determine in your payment reason code that certain payment reasons code should be only used for employees, upon selecting the reason code, the list of payees are coming from KIM. Also, from a labor distribution in labor ledger, the employee ID is tied to KIM. So if you want to see the name of the expenses that are incurred within labor distribution, you have to have that name existing in the KIM database. That is only if you decide to keep the information in KIM.
So let's talk a little bit more about some of the technical issues, and this overlaps a little bit with implementation. Like we talked about, single sign-on, CAS, we highly recommend, but if you've got another system that you're already using on campus, it won't be difficult to use. Everything about RICE in general, and certainly with KIM, it takes advantage of services. So you can easily plug and play, and if you need to replace just about any part of KIM and you want to do something that's unique, it's very simple to do. It uses a technology called Spring, which most Java developers are familiar with. So you can pretty simply create your own, you just follow an interface that's defined for the service, and then a single entry in an XML file replaces the default service with your service. Or you can do a simple override. So if the service works the way you want, but you need to change out one function to do something a little different, that's very simple to do. And in fact, that's exactly what we've done when at the schools that have gone into production so far. Certainly, one of the most important things that almost every school is going to do is LDAP integration. There might be some small schools who will keep their, have a limited number of users, and they just want to,